Hi guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another Retro RPG. And at the end of another week, the end of another poll, we have an absolutely resounding win for the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition Complete Psionics Handbook. Which I didn't want to return to quite as soon, because it's only been a couple of weeks since we did the Thrycreen Handbook, or Sourcebook, for Dark Sun for AD&D 2nd Edition. But it's a lovely book, so we'll go over to the desktop and have a look through that. And I'll be back at the end of the video with updates on the poll, updates on the channel, and other stuff. So I hope to see you there. So, this is the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition Complete Psionics Handbook. If I move it around a bit to get the embossed gold lettering reflecting, we can see how lovely this cover is. Now, it looks like sort of red leather, but it is in fact plastic. And I'd like to cover that before I even go into the book, even look at the back cover. The cover itself isn't just laminated paper or card, it is actually plastic. I don't know if you can hear the sound of that, but it's really tough and long wearing. Now this particular book I dragged along to my Dungeons & Dragons campaign whenever we were playing Dark Sun, and we played it under two different games masters, so we played quite a lot of Dark Sun. So this got thrown into my holdall along with a change of clothes, dragged to my work, sitting around at a dusty warehouse all day, then changed. I got changed, I threw myself onto the train, went to my game, it got battered around, and it still looks like new. It's really good. Inside we can see the pages are slightly sweat stained along the edge, just very slightly, but the cover looks brand new. It was a fantastic idea. The complete books were so robust. The other thing on the cover I'd like to pick up is the TSR logo. Because the complete books went on for so long, the logo for TSR changed during production. And some of the earlier books have the square logo, which I actually preferred a lot more to this one. I think this is just overly complex. It isn't really that clear. But in the middle, they would have the new logo on the front, and they would have the old logo on the spine, whereas this one has the new logo on the spine as well. Just as a comment that these books did keep coming out for a number of years. Anyways, let's have a look at the back cover. The Complete Psionics Handbook. Are you ready for the mind-blowing potential of the psyche? This handbook describes over 150 paranormal powers: telepathy, ESP, clairvoyance, psychokinesis, biofeedback, out-of-body travel, plus many amazing talents never before revealed. The psionicist is a completely new character class for AD&D games, both for player characters and NPCs. Explore inner space. Now you can really put mind over matter with the Complete Psionics Handbook. So where the other complete books had fleshed out character classes from the player's handbook, the Psionics Handbook and a few others, there was like the Gladiator's Handbook, which, although it did cover fighters and other types, which could be gladiators, did cover gladiators as a totally new class themselves. But the Psionicist is what this book's about. Basically, at its most base, it's a new type of wizard with a new type of magic, even though these are mental powers rather than coming from some external magical source. These are from within, so anti-magic and stuff won't affect them. Now inside there are some absolutely lovely images, but these look to me like the cover of a 70s prog rock album, and they didn't look very Dungeons & Dragons like, which is very obvious as we flip the next page, because we can see colour photography used with permission. Page 1 by Lightscapes, the stock market. Page 9 by Ken Cooper, the Image Bank. Pages 45 and 77, Stephen Hunt, the Image Bank. So these were stock artwork which were bought in from an external source. These weren't done by TSR's artists or from their bank of usual artists. And they look kind of different. Now, perhaps that's the tone they're going for, creating a book which doesn't look like anything else, because psionicists are supposed to be very different. But I'm not that keen of it. I'd like to have seen psionics powers being used in sort of fantasy settings rather than generic pictures like this. Opening the door in your mind. Oh, how very deep. I'm a sarcastic swine, aren't I? So, what we've got is, it talks us through the changes, because psionics were mentioned in older versions of Dungeons and Dragons, and this totally revises how they work. So it explains, how does this fit my campaign? Are psionics magical? And then we go into the psionicist class itself, which is a character class. So it talks about multi-classing them, racial restrictions, dual classing, the ability requirements. Obviously, they need a quite high intelligence and a very high wisdom. Prime requisites. We've got the racial limits. So halflings can only get up to level 10, whereas elves can only get to level 7. We've got a primer on the psionics. Now, psionics have disciplines, which are an overarching group of powers. Within that, the sciences, which are the more powerful abilities. And then there's devotions, which are the lesser powers. And for every science, you must have 2 devotions. And given within some of the disciplines, there aren't double the number of devotions there are sciences, it means that a psionicist can never get all the powers. There's just some of the disciplines where you can't get everything, ever. They're broken down into clairsentience powers, psychokinetic powers, psychometabolic powers, psychoportative powers, telepathic powers, and metapsionic powers. So metapsionic powers amplify the others. We've got the experience levels up to level 20. I was going to comment that while AD&D allowed you to go up to 30th level, this only lets you go up to 20th. And then I remembered none of the classes actually have an experience table which goes past 20. There's just extra rules for that. So the psionicists fit in, as well as fighters, wizards, everything. For the amount of experience, 3 million for level 20 is spot on with the fighter character class. So these are less expensive than wizards, but thieves and I believe clerics will level faster than psionicists. But these will peg absolutely level with fighters being ahead of wizards, rangers, paladins, etc. We go through the psionic progression. So as you go up levels, you get access to more disciplines, more sciences, more devotions, and you get defense modes. So you can protect yourself from psionic powers. Psionic strength points, which are the battery that you pull your psionic powers from. Depending on your attributes, you get more psionic strength points, and you regain them by resting, basically. So just by walking, you get 3 every hour back. If you are sleeping, you get 12 every hour back. So you can recharge your power even during an adventure. You get them back all the time. Psionic's calculated thacos, because I don't think it's actually just talking about that. I think that's the basic thaco, but you also get psionic thacos. Basically, in mental combat, you have to hit with your powers. So you get a mental armor class and a mental thaco. So psionic combat is alongside ordinary combat instead of totally replacing it. Non-weapon proficiencies, just going through everything. Then we've gone to wild talents. Now, these are random abilities anybody can have. In Dark Sun, it plays heavily into these, that basically every character in Dark Sun gets a wild talent, which is why this book got dragged along to all our Dark Sun ones, because we had one of these powers. And we can see the list of wild devotions that you would roll on, the wild sciences you would roll on. And we can see, like, psychokinetic devotions here. There's 7 devotions, but only 5 sciences. So there aren't double the amount of devotions as there are sciences, so you couldn't get every one of the psychokinetic sciences. We've got the psionic combat, as I said. So you are using your powers, and you've got your defense modes that you learn up to defend yourself against the powers. We've got telepathic combat, attack modes, attack versus defense modes, so we can see the different types of attack and how they count against different defense modes. Kind of like a rock, paper, scissors type system, so you get a better advantage for using various of these against others. The artwork is very generic. It obviously a lot of it's been brought in just from stock sites. Although some of it, like this, is very nice Dungeons and Dragons work and does hint at psychic powers. You know, these two are doing something. I'm not sure whether this would be equally as well used for magic. Perhaps this was drawn from another source, but it says, Aura Sight, mercenary hirelings reveal their true colours. And we go through the clairsentience powers. So we've got a chapter detailing all the sciences, and then the clairsentience devotions. And that's what a lot of this book is. Just lists of powers. You know, you can feel light, you can feel sound, you can hear light. So if you're in darkness, you can sense things in other ways. You've got ways of counteracting magical penalties, as well as lots more powerful ones. So spirit sense, detonate, you can cause inanimate objects to explode. Disintegrate, molecular rearrangement. I'm not sure if that's the exact power, but there's one where you can manipulate your skin and basically incorporate weapons into it. So your sword can't be parried out of your hand because the sword actually grows out of your hand. Your flesh has grown around the handle. Some interesting abilities. We've got telekinesis, ballistic attack, animate shadow. Just so many different abilities, very similar to magic, but taking a slightly different tone, a twist against it. Again, this would make a very nice cover for a prog rock album, or Scientology handbook, what are they called? Dianetics. You know, unleash your hidden potential. It's very generic. I'm not that impressed with the use of the book, use of art within the book, although the book itself is fantastic. Levitation, soften, molecular agitation. There's so many different abilities. Complete healing. Death field, energy containment, metamorphosis, shadow form, absorb disease. What's this one? Biofeedback or something, where he's shape-shifted parts of his body into that of an animal. Body weaponry, that's it. Allows the psionicist to convert one of his arms into a weapon. Virtually any sort of weapon can be imitated except short bow, hand crossbow, light crossbow, any weapon the psionicist cannot normally use. So you become a wood and or metal version. So you could create your arm into a blade. Terminator 2 style. Got cause decay, cell adjustment, chameleon powers, enhanced strength, just lots of abilities here. Graft weapon, that's the one I think. With this power, the psionicist can graft any one-handed melee weapon directly onto his body. Picks up the weapon, activates this power, the weapon becomes an extension of the character's arm. Immovability, so basically he anchors himself to the spot. Lend health, mind over body, share strength. There's lots and lots of different abilities. We get onto really quite stretching, these are mental powers rather than magical powers here, though, where we've got probability travel. With probability travel, the psionicist can traverse the astral plane physically as if he's in astral form. Summon planar creature, teleport. How can you teleport just using the power of your mind? That's got to be mental. That's got to be magical. Dimension door, teleport other, dimension walk. These really do sound much more magical than they do just mental powers. Dream travel sounds more psionic based rather than magical. Time space anchor. Telepathy abilities. And another one of these lovely pieces of artwork, which is way more Dianetics than it is Dungeons and Dragons. Although, didn't Queen use something like that for an album cover once? I think it was a giant robot. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Anyway, we got through lots and lots of powers here. Telepathic devotions, you know, awe, contact, daydream, ego whip, identity penetration, empathy, ESP. These are all very traditional sounding mental powers. Life detection, psychic crush, post-hypnotic suggestion. These are all spot in for what psionics should be mental powers, whereas teleport sounds way too stretching the abilities. And then we've got the meta-psionics sciences, where you can empower abilities. You can take one of your psychic powers and put it into an item. You can do psychic surgery to repair mental damage to people. Create a psychic clone of yourself. Create multiple minds within your own body. Cannibalize, so you can take your own body and cannibalize it for extra power, burning off your hit points and converting them into psychic points. Or, sorry, constitution points, convert them directly to PSPs at a ratio of 1:8. Intensify, so you can take one element of a power and increase it. Magnify, which does something very similar. Psychic sense, retrospection, splice, stasis fields, wrench. And then we've got ideas for a psionics campaign. Now, psionics is viewed no differently than magic. It is a tool, as good or bad as the psionicist who wields it. But people can't cast detect magic on a psionicist, so it would be seen almost like more witchcraft. How psionics works in different campaign worlds, so the Forgotten Realms, World of Greyhawk, Dragonlance, Ravenloft, Spelljammer, and as I mentioned, this was before Dark Sun came out, and Dark Sun built on the foundations that Psionics Handbook created. We've got psionics and magic. Spells and psionics, so how spells interact with psionic powers, because certain abilities, magical abilities, will protect against psionic powers, whereas others won't. It mentions, for example, anti-magic shell has no effect against psionics. Got some ideas here, and then we're on to related reading and non-fiction. And we've got some monsters. Some of these are rewritten ones from the Monstrous Compendium, others are new. So we've got the Baku, Brain Moles, Intellect Devourers, Cerebral Parasites, Larval Intellect Devourers, Ustalagor, Shedu, Thought Eaters, Sue Monsters, and Vagabonds. And then we've got updates to what's already in there. So the Mind Flayers obviously have psychic powers, and it explains how, or which ones they get access to. The Wanti, Gith, Tanari get access to some abilities. And then the last few pages, we've got a summary of powers, giving you a rough idea how much they cost and how long they last, so you can get them at a glimpse. So that was the Complete Psionics Handbook for AD&D 2nd edition. And that absolutely romped home with the poll with 34%. And in second place was the Warhammer Companion with 20%, so a very fantasy-heavy poll. But with it removed, creating a space, I've actually been searching a bit recently for things to put in the poll, because I haven't felt that enthused. While I love everything in my collection, all these things behind me, there was just nothing which was giving that spark to me. And then in the last 24 hours, I just started noticing books that I was like, why haven't I done that? Why haven't I done that? So this week I've added to the poll the Dark Tech source book for Dark Conspiracy. Because Dark Conspiracy is a game I haven't covered in absolutely ages. More than a year, maybe 2 years, since I last did anything for Dark Conspiracy. So it's great to return to that. And hopefully these games that have been catching my attention the last 24 hours are going to stick in my head in future weeks. And I can put in some interesting things which are a bit different from the usual Shadowrun, Star Wars, AD&D things which I tend to be covering recently. We can add a little more spice into the polls and hopefully some more interesting stuff. But as usual, I've whittled on for long enough. So thank you very, very much for watching. And as always, most of all, you look after yourselves. And I'll catch you later. Bye now.